I knew something had gone wrong the moment my phone rang from inside the house. I was standing in the driveway, keys still in my hand, staring at the front door like it had just betrayed me. The ringtone was unmistakable, my ringtone. Soft, familiar, echoing faintly through the walls of a house that was supposed to be empty. A house I had locked less than an hour earlier. A house I was absolutely, completely supposed to be alone in. For a few seconds my brain refused to accept it. I told myself it was a mistake. A neighbor's phone. A sound drifting from somewhere else. Anything but the truth pressing against my chest so hard it made it difficult to breathe. Then the ringing stopped. And footsteps answered instead. Slow. Careful. Coming from the second floor. That's when my body reacted before my mind could. My heart slammed so hard I thought it might give me away. My fingers tightened around the keys like they were the only weapon I had. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't even breathe properly. Because whoever was inside my house had just realized I was home. I replay that moment over and over in my head. The stillness, the silence stretching too long. The way the house suddenly felt aware. As if it had been waiting for me to notice. As if this wasn't a coincidence, but a mistake I'd already made long before I stepped into that driveway. You see, everyone thinks the scariest part of being alone is the dark. Or the quiet. Or the strange noises that make your imagination run wild. They're wrong. The scariest part is realizing that the rules you thought kept you safe don't apply anymore. I had locked every door. I had checked every window. I had done everything right. And yet something or someone was upstairs, moving through my space like it belonged there. Another step. Closer. Deliberate. Not running. Not sneaking. Walking. That's when the question hit me, sharp and sudden. How long had they been there? Long enough to know my ringtone. Long enough to know my routine. Long enough to feel comfortable moving around my house like it was their own. The front door stood inches away from me. Freedom was right there. I could have run. I could have screamed. I could have gotten back into my car and driven until the fear burned itself out. But I didn't. Because deep down, a darker thought had already taken hold. What if leaving was exactly what they wanted? The house went quiet again. No footsteps. No sound. Just that heavy, suffocating silence that makes your ears ring. The kind of silence that tells you something is listening just as closely as you are. I took one step toward the door. The floor creaked upstairs in response. One step for one step. A warning. My mouth went dry. My legs felt weak. And in that moment, standing frozen between safety and whatever waited inside, I understood something that still terrifies me to this day. Some mistakes don't announce themselves right away. Some mistakes wait patiently. And by the time you realize you've made one, it's already too late to undo it. Before that night, my life was painfully ordinary. And honestly, that's what I loved about it. My name is Ethan. I'm 29, single, and until recently, I thought I was finally doing something right with my life. After years of tiny apartments, noisy neighbors, and paper-thin walls, I had saved enough to rent a small house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just a quiet two-story place tucked near a line of trees, far enough from the main road that traffic noise never reached it. It was early fall, one of those evenings where the air feels cool but not cold yet. The clock on my dashboard read 9:17 p.m. when I pulled into the driveway that night. I remember noticing how calm everything felt. No wind. No distant sirens. Just crickets and the soft hum of my engine cooling down. I had been gone most of the evening helping a coworker move some furniture. Exhausting, boring work, but normal. Predictable. The kind of night that doesn't leave a mark on your memory. All I wanted was a shower, something to eat, and a quiet couple of hours to myself. That house was perfect for that. Inside, everything was exactly where I'd left it. The living room light was off, but the porch light spilled in through the windows, casting soft yellow shapes across the walls. My shoes sat neatly by the door. The couch still smelled faintly of laundry detergent from the weekend before. Home. I locked the door behind me out of habit, double-checking the deadbolt like I always did. Not because I was scared, just routine. My parents drilled that into me growing up. Lock up even if nothing ever happens. I dropped my keys into the bowl by the door, tossed my jacket over the chair, and stood there for a moment just listening. Silence. Comfortable, familiar silence. Living alone had started to feel like freedom instead of loneliness. I could leave lights on or off, eat dinner at midnight, fall asleep on the couch with the TV murmuring in the background. No one to answer to, no one to disturb me. That night I reheated leftovers, ate standing at the kitchen counter, and scrolled through my phone without really paying attention to anything. Just killing time. Just existing. I remember checking the time again, 9:42 p.m., and thinking I'd probably head upstairs soon. Shower then bed. Work came early the next morning. Nothing about the house felt wrong. The windows were closed. The curtains hung perfectly still. The air inside was warm and steady, smelling faintly of soap and wood. Even the old floorboards, usually eager to creak, stayed quiet beneath my feet. If you'd asked me then whether I felt safe, I wouldn't have hesitated. Of course I did. This was my space. My routine. My quiet little corner of the world where nothing unexpected ever happened. I walked through the living room, turned off the kitchen light, and glanced up the staircase. The second floor sat in darkness, calm and empty, just like it had been every other night since I moved in. I didn't know then that this sense of peace, this calm, boring normality, was the most fragile thing in the world. Because once you feel truly safe, you stop watching, you stop listening, and you assume that nothing is wrong right up until the moment it is. The first thing that felt off was so small I almost ignored it. As I stood at the bottom of the stairs, I thought I heard something shift upstairs. Not a footstep, not a thud, just a soft, careful sound like fabric brushing against a wall. The kind of noise you explain away without even thinking. Old house, I told myself. Wood expands. Pipes settle. Houses make noise. Still, I paused, one hand resting on the banister, listening. Nothing. I went back to the living room and sat on the couch, turning on the TV more for background noise than anything else. A low-volume sitcom filled the room, canned laughter bouncing off the walls. The sound should have been comforting. Instead, it felt wrong. Too loud, like it was trying to cover something up. That's when I noticed how quiet everything else had become. The crickets outside had stopped. The soft hum I was used to hearing from the distance, cars, wind, life was gone. It was like the house existed in a bubble, cut off from the rest of the world. I muted the TV. The silence pressed in immediately. From somewhere above me came a faint creak. I looked up, my eyes tracing the ceiling as if I could see through it. The sound wasn't sharp or sudden. It was slow, drawn out, controlled. Another explanation jumped to mind. Temperature change. Old beams shifting. But my stomach tightened anyway. I checked my phone, 9:58 p.m. Almost 10. Too early to feel this tired. Too early to feel this uneasy. I stood and walked to the kitchen, flipping on the light. The familiar glow steadied me. Everything looked normal. Countertops clean. Sink empty. Back door locked just like I remembered. As I turned back toward the living room, I froze. The hallway felt narrower. It's hard to explain. The walls hadn't moved. Nothing was physically different. But the space felt tighter, heavier, like the air itself had thickened. I suddenly became aware of how exposed I was standing there, surrounded by doorways leading into dark rooms. I laughed quietly at myself and shook my head. Get a grip, I muttered. That's when I felt it. That unmistakable sensation of being watched. Not imagined. Not dramatic. Real. The kind that makes the hair on your arms lift and your skin prickle like static electricity. I turned slowly, scanning the living room, the staircase, the shadows between furniture. Nothing moved. But the feeling didn't fade. I walked to the front door and checked the lock again. Deadbolt secure. Windows locked. Everything exactly as it should be. Still, my heart was beating faster than it should have been. I went upstairs, telling myself I was being ridiculous. Each step creaked under my weight, loud in the silence. At the top of the stairs, I paused again. The hallway stretched out ahead of me. Doors on either side like open mouths waiting to speak. The air up there was cooler. Not by much, but enough to notice. I stood there, listening, counting my breaths. Somewhere behind me, the house let out a soft, almost inaudible sound like a slow exhale. I turned quickly. Nothing. No movement. No shadow. No reason to feel afraid. And yet, every instinct in my body was whispering the same warning. Something was wrong. Not dangerous. Not yet. Just wrong. Like the moment before a storm breaks. When the sky goes quiet and the world seems to hold its breath. I didn't know then that this feeling, the unease, the watching, the silence, was the last gentle warning I would get. Because whatever had been lurking just out of reach wasn't ready to be seen yet. It was still waiting. And I was still telling myself everything was fine. The moment everything changed didn't come with a scream or a crash. Came with a smell. I was standing in the upstairs hallway telling myself again that I was just tired, when something sharp and sour hit the back of my throat. Not garbage. Not mold. Something human. Stale breath and sweat, like clothes worn too long in a locked room. My pulse jumped. That smell hadn't been there earlier. I followed it without thinking, my feet moving slowly, deliberately, like if I went fast enough the truth might notice. The hallway light flickered as I passed beneath it, dimming for half a second longer than it should have. The air grew heavier with each step. It was coming from the guest bedroom at the end of the hall, the one I never used. The door was cracked open an inch. I was certain I'd closed it. I stood there, staring at that thin line of darkness, my mind racing through excuses. Maybe airflow. Maybe I bumped it earlier. Maybe the door creaked as it moved. Not opening. Closing. Someone was on the other side. The house seemed to sink around me, like gravity had suddenly doubled. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was focused. Intent. Hello. I said, my voice coming out smaller than I meant it to. No answer. But I heard breathing. Slow. Controlled. Too steady to be afraid. I took a step back, my heel brushing the carpet. The breathing stopped instantly. That's when I knew. This wasn't an animal. This wasn't the house settling. This was a person who had been listening to me this entire time. The doorknob turned. Just a fraction. Enough to make the metal whisper. I ran. Adrenaline slammed into me so hard my vision tunneled. I bolted down the hallway, nearly slipping on the stairs as I took them two at a time. Behind me, footsteps exploded into motion. No longer careful, no longer slow. They were chasing me. The living room lights flickered as I reached the bottom. The front door was right there. I grabbed the handle and yanked. Locked. I stared at it in disbelief for half a second too long. The footsteps were closer now, heavy, fast, reckless. I spun and ran for the kitchen instead, my mind screaming that I needed an exit. Any exit. The back door. I slammed into it, hands shaking as I twisted the knob. Locked. I backed away, breath coming in ragged gasps, my eyes darting wildly as I searched for somewhere to go. Then I saw the reflection in the microwave door. A shape in the hallway. Tall. Thin. Standing perfectly still like it had all the time in the world. I couldn't see its face clearly. Just the outline of a head tilted slightly to the side studying me. The smell was stronger now. You live alone, a voice said softly. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't a question. It was confirmation. The lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the room, broken only by the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps moving toward me. Every survival instinct I had screamed the same truth I could no longer deny. I was not alone. And whoever was in my house knew it long before I did. I didn't think. I reacted. The moment the lights went out, I dropped to the floor as something rushed past where my head had just been. Air displaced inches from my face. A hand too close brushed my shoulder. I screamed and crawled. Not graceful. Not smart. Just desperate. I scrambled under the kitchen table as footsteps thundered behind me, chairs slamming against cabinets. Something heavy hit the counter, glass shattering. The house felt too small now, like it was shrinking to trap me inside it. My heart was beating so hard I thought it might give me away. I clamped a hand over my mouth. Silence. Then click. The lights snapped back on. I flinched, squeezing my eyes shut for half a second, then forced them open. The kitchen was empty. No broken glass. No fallen chairs. No sign of anyone. But the smell was still there. Stronger than ever. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I nearly sobbed from relief. I fumbled it out, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. No service. Of course. A floorboard creaked behind me. I didn't look. I bolted. I ran out of the kitchen and into the living room, slipping on the rug, barely catching myself on the couch. Behind me, something knocked over a lamp. The bulb shattered, plunging half the room back into shadow. Footsteps again. Fast. Too fast. I threw myself toward the staircase, but before I could reach it, something grabbed the back of my shirt. Fabric tore. I screamed and twisted free, feeling fingers scrape across my skin. I sprinted up the stairs, lungs burning, legs shaking, terror driving me forward. Halfway up, the banister light flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the stairwell. I misstepped and nearly fell backward, but caught myself just in time, my nails digging into the carpet. Below me I heard breathing. Close. Right beneath the stairs. You can't hide forever, the voice whispered. I ran into the bedroom and slammed the door, locking it with a sharp click that felt far too small to matter. I shoved the dresser against it, with scraping loudly across the floor. The doorknob rattled immediately. Hard. Once. Twice. The door shook. I backed away until my legs hit the bed, my mind racing. Window. I needed the window. I yanked it open and icy night air rushed in. 2 stories up. No ladder. No tree close enough. The doorknob stopped. Silence again. Too sudden. I heard footsteps moving away. My chest tightened. This was worse. This meant thinking. Planning. Then the ceiling creaked. Above me. My blood froze. The attic. I slowly looked up just as the attic hatch shifted. Dust sprinkled down. Fingers curled over the edge. I didn't wait to see more. I climbed onto the bed and jumped. The fall knocked the breath out of me. Pain exploded through my ankle, but I didn't stop. I rolled, stumbled to my feet, and ran barefoot across the frozen yard toward the neighbor's house, screaming as loud as I could. Behind me, a shadow stood at my bedroom window, watching, not chasing, just watching as if it knew something I didn't. Lights snapped on next door. A door opened. Someone shouted. I collapsed onto the grass, sobbing, shaking, barely able to breathe. The police came minutes later. They searched the house. Every room. Every closet. The attic. They found nothing. No forced entry. No footprints. No sign anyone else had been there. But when one officer came back downstairs, his face was pale. Your attic ladder, he said carefully. It was already pulled down. My stomach dropped, because I knew I never went into the attic. And whatever was up there had already been inside the house with me. They told me I was safe. That's the word everyone kept using, safe, as if saying it enough times would make it true. I spent the rest of that night sitting on my neighbor's couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like detergent and coffee, my hands locked around a mug I never drank from. The paramedics checked my ankle, sprained, not broken. They said I was lucky. Lucky. Outside, red and blue lights washed over the front of my house, over the windows I had looked out of 100 times already, the same windows something had looked back through only minutes earlier. The police were thorough. I'll give them that. They searched every inch of the house again in daylight, took photos, measured footprints that turned out to be mine, checked locks, windows, vents. They even brought in a dog which circled the house once, sniffed the front porch, and refused to go inside. The officer joked that maybe it didn't like hardwood floors. No one laughed. They asked me the same questions over and over, like maybe repetition would turn my answers into something that made sense. Did I know anyone who could have done this? Had I noticed anything strange before moving in? Was I stressed? Tired? Drinking? I kept telling them the same thing. I was alone. They exchanged looks every time I said it. Eventually, one of them sat across from me and spoke softly, the way people do when they're about to say something they think you won't like. There's no evidence anyone else was in the house, he said. No fingerprints. No signs of forced entry. No neighbors saw anyone leave. I stared at my hands. What about the attic ladder? I asked. He hesitated. It's old, he said. Those things sometimes drop on their own. That answer settled into me like ice. Because the ladder wasn't old. And it hadn't dropped. It had been pulled down. They left around noon. Said they'd keep an eye on the neighborhood. Told me to call if anything else happened. Suggested I stay with someone for a few days. I agreed. I didn't go back inside alone. A friend helped me pack a bag. I stood on the lawn while he went in, every nerve screaming, my eyes locked on the windows. I half expected to see a face appear again, pressed against the glass, smiling, patient. Nothing did. For a week I slept on couches and spare beds, barely sleeping at all. Every sound jolted me awake. Every creak, Every whisper of air through a vent made my heart race. I kept thinking I smelled it again. That same damp, stale odor. But whenever I mentioned it, people told me it was stress. Trauma. My brain filling in gaps. Maybe they were right. 2 weeks later, I went back to the house in daylight to grab the rest of my things. I brought someone with me. The house looked normal. Too normal. Sunlight filled the rooms. Dust floated lazily in the air. No shadows where shadows didn't belong. No smells. No sounds except our footsteps. The attic ladder was pushed back into place. "See," my friend said. "Just a house." I nodded, pretending my chest wasn't tight. As we were leaving, I noticed something near the bedroom window, the one it had watched me from. In the dirt below, half hidden by frost, were marks. Not footprints. Drag marks. Long, thin. Like something had been lowered carefully down the side of the house. The police said it was probably animals. I didn't argue. I sold the house 3 months later. Didn't tell the buyers why. Even now, years later, I still wake up some nights convinced I hear movement above me. That faint creak of weight shifting in a place no one should be. I don't live anywhere with an attic anymore. But sometimes, usually when I'm alone, I catch a smell that doesn't belong. Damp. Stale. Familiar. And every once in a while I swear I hear it. A soft, patient sound. Like someone walking carefully overhead. Waiting.